So the idea of this afternoon's session, and I do hope that those of you who are online will let us know if in fact you did session one. Um, this PowerPoint that I've got here actually covers session one. So I'll just show you there. So session one, we talked about how to launch Fast Phonics. So I went through the student console. I went through your login cards and your parent letters. We talked about how to use manage progress, and I talked about the resources that were in the program. So I'm hoping that you've either were on that session or that you've watched the recording of the first webinar, because actually if you go to where you booked here, so this is today's session, Enhancing Your Phonics, there is a recording of that introduction one there. So if you haven't previously done that one, it's probably worth going back and listening to that. Like I say, I will do a straight recording after this, so there will be an opportunity to listen back to part two as well. Part three is there, and those sessions are in 2 weeks' time. And basically, if you complete all three sessions, then you get a Fast Phonics teacher certification. And also the member of 3P that's looking after your subscription will just give you a ring and just check how your journey through the sessions has been, and just make sure if you need any further support so that you've got that contact to keep you updated with Fast Phonics and to be there for your Fast Phonics journey. So that's how the webinars all fit together. So where we're continuing that journey today, today's agenda is here. So I'll just go back in and we'll just do a very quick, in case some of the people online today didn't do session one, I'll just do a very quick overview of the website for Fast Phonics from the teacher console. This afternoon's focus is going to be on phase 3 and 4. So in session 1, we looked at phase 2, and to cover phase 2, we really went through peak 3 and looked at examples. So today we'll do phase 3 and 4. So we'll be looking at peak 8, and we'll also look at peak 12. I'm going to go into more detail around the phonics readers in the library. I'm going to show you how to assign those, how to share a collection of those. And this week we're going to go into the reporting, so you'll know how to see how your students are progressing through Fast Phonics. We'll talk a little bit about support and interventions, and I'm going to talk a little more about supporting families and your parents. And we will keep stopping, and I'll be checking in with Amy as she's very kindly joined us this afternoon on this session. So Amy's watching that question box, and I will keep stopping and making sure if there are any questions coming through. So let's just first of all go through, and I'm just going to do a little quick review of Fast Phonics, just in case some of you didn't do that first session. So obviously it is part of Reading Eggs, so we come in there. This is me logging in as a teacher. So as a teacher, you have access to Fast Phonics and Reading Eggs and Reading Express. And there's also a library that all your students can access, regardless of which of those programs they're using. Everybody can access the library, and there's now over 3,000 books in there. But because this session is really focused on systematic synthetic phonics, we will be visiting the library, but I'll be showing you how to access the Phonics readers in the library. So again, just to recap on that difference between those two early reading journeys, because both Reading Eggs and Fast Phonics, both those programs are designed to support students that are learning to read, but Fast Phonics is a systematic synthetic phonics program. And if you're dialing in from England, you'll know that the Department for Education here has made it statutory for schools to be teaching children to read using a systematic synthetic phonics program. And for your information too, we have applied, there is a Department for Education list of approved systematic synthetic phonics resources. It's not statutory to use one of those, but we do meet all the criteria for them, and we have applied to be added to their list. But obviously, that process takes some time. But just so that you know, that we do meet all the criteria for that. If you're dialing in from further afield, and I do know that obviously we have schools globally using reading eggs. So if you're dialing in from beyond England and you take a more blended approach to phonics, so if you use an analytical approach to phonics where you're really focusing on that initial sound rather than sounding all the way through a word, where you also use things like picture clues, then reading eggs is that more blended phonics approach. So it has elements of systematic synthetic phonics, but it also has analytic phonics in it. So it has a real focus on initial sounds, and it also has analogy in it as well. So it also has a focus on strings of rhyming words, so word families. So that's the difference. But today's session is all about fast phonics. So to demonstrate it on your interactive whiteboard, you can go to Start Phonics there, and you'll have your demonstration student there. You can also, because most of you will be using it with younger students, you can support those younger students, making it very easy for them to log in by simply clicking on their name here. So I'm not going to demonstrate all the student console just yet, because when we go into the peaks, I can recap a little bit when we explore peak 12, and we're going to be having a look at peak 8 as well. So we'll have a look at those. So on the left-hand menu, you'll see we've got Reading Eggs, Reading Express, and Fast Phonics. So we're going to be exploring this area. So we're going into Fast Phonics. We'll be exploring the lessons. I'm also going to highlight that down at the bottom, quick links. This is where all the guides live. So you'll see user guides, but you'll also see Fast Phonics. So for Fast Phonics guidance, click in here, and you'll see in here the white paper, so the research behind the program, all there. And you'll also see some really useful documents that throughout the session, I will dip in and we'll be using those documents this afternoon. I did just touch last time on how to manage progress. So just in case, again, you missed last time, I'm just going to recap that that your students will do a placement test when they go into Fast Phonics, but that you can reset that placement test, or you can also override it. And you do that by coming down to manage progress. And within Manage Progress, you can select individual students, or you can select all of them. All of them would be there. And you go to Edit Progress, across to Fast Phonics. And if you wanted to reset the placement test, you simply select Placement Test and Update. If you want to move them all onto the peak that matches what you're teaching, so for instance, this afternoon, when we have a look at the phonemes, the SH, CH, then we would be moving everybody onto peak 8. So to do that, I would be going Edit Progress, Fast Phonics. I would scroll down to peak 8, select that, and I would update. But I'm not going to move all of my students, so I'm just going to press cancel for now. But just that little reminder about how you do that. So Amy, I'm just going to pause, and I'm just going to check in with you to see if you have some feedback, so I know if people did listen back to the first webinar, or indeed if they did join us for the first webinar. And Amy, I'm just also going to check that you can hear me as well. Okay, so I'm going to continue. I'm not hearing back from Amy, but I'm hoping that Amy's still with us. It looks to me like she's still with us, but like I say, unfortunately, we have had some technical issues this afternoon, so I will just keep an eye on there. Okay, so right, I've just accessed the question box. So yes, I can see that we've got a little bit of a mixture. Some people that did join the session, some that are new this afternoon. So like I say, if you're new this afternoon, then I would recommend going here to support.3p learning, go to the webinars and either do that introduction or watch the recorded version of it there. Okay, so because we're not going to cover everything that I covered. I've just done a quick overview. So moving on, this afternoon, we're going to focus on phase 3 and 4. So I'm just going to go full screen so that you can just see this slide a little bit better. So those of you that are used to teaching using letters and sounds, you'll know that in phase 3 of letters and sounds, it covered all of these phonemes. And here you'll see that I've taken part of the planning document from Fast Phonics here, so you can see how it sits across the lessons. Again, like I say, when you're working through the weekly planner, remember that it is guidance. So if your class isn't covering it at the speed that we've got it planned, do use that professional judgment. It doesn't matter if you take, 3 weeks to cover peak 8, or if your class moves faster and you've done it in 1 week. This is just guidance. So we're going to be going into peak 8. I'm going to show you where the teaching guide is, where the teaching deck is, where all the printable resources are for it. So we'll come back out of that across to the program. So remember again, into quick links, Fast Phonics, and there's that teaching overview. So I'm going to open that up for us. So from the teaching overview, you can see last time we focused on phase 2 and we explored the peak 3 there. This time we're going to be exploring these phonemes, and that's part of peak 8. You'll also see in here, I'm going to be opening up this document. So again, we looked at this document last time. This is really useful because this document outlines what every single stepping stone within a peak covers. So if I just move through that quickly so that I've got it open, ready at peak 8. So 9, here's peak 8. So again, shows you the letter sounds, shows you all the words that are covered, and then the content of each of the peaks, and you've got all the books listed there and all the additional resources there. So that's just a really useful overview. So then I'm going to go into Fast Phonics lessons, and we're focusing on phase 3. So you'll see here, phase 3 through from peak 6 to peak 8. And here we've got from peak 6 to 12. And the one we're focusing on is peak 8 as our example. So if I click on resources here, you'll see I've got handwriting. So for schools that are teaching joined up handwriting, you've got cursive handwriting sheets, you've got non-cursive if you're doing print, you've got phonics worksheets in there. You've also got this teacher slide deck. That is downloadable. That comes down as a PowerPoint. So I'm just going to open that up for you. So basically what this does is all the material that's available as flashcards, you can print it out and laminate it, or you can use it on your interactive whiteboard. So for instance here, if I'm introducing that sh phoneme, I could either have the flashcard laminated or I could simply use that on my interactive whiteboard. You'll also see that after I've introduced the letter sound, that I've got the printed phoneme and the arrows so I can model the handwriting on my interactive whiteboard. And equally, if I want the cursive script there, I've got the H coming with the flick in and the flick out, and the lowercase case s with the flick from the line in. So if you're doing cursive script, you've got that modeled as well. So you'll see in these teaching decks, each of the phoneme that's introduced, the flashcard and the handwriting. You'll then see all the non-decodable high frequency words, all as flashcards coming in there. So tricky words like you're going to be teaching that during this peak as a word that children can't sound out at this point. You've got activities. So here there's a word search, so that a word game, so that children can, decide which of these words are non-words, which of these words are real words. And you've got the Elkenin boxes in there as well. And all these words, all with the sound buttons in as well. So you can see that that really is a complete teaching tool for you to use on the interactive whiteboard, alongside obviously the online program. So I'll just minimize that down, and then I'm going to open up the teaching guide in a separate tab. And again, for those of you that weren't on the session for the first webinar, just that reminder that for every single peak, you have all these resources. So while I'm modeling it with Peak 8, it's exactly the same for all resources. So let's just have a look at where we put the guide. So here you can see phase 3. And if we just enlarge that so it's a little easier to see, if I scroll down, you'll see there's a little introduction there. So this talks you through the format of all the lessons. So we start with that review. We move on to the teach part of the lesson where we're teaching the new phoneme, and then practice, and again, using activities from the program, and I'll model those to you, and then the apply section, and then at the end of each peak, the assessment as well there. So a little note around assessment. So here you'll see the introduction for the peak here. So the first week, all the objectives listed, all the words that you're going to cover there. So if, for instance, if we just take a little look at this, you'll see, for instance, here, if it was Wednesday, we've introduced the sh phoneme. We watched the video that introduced that. So stone 1 introduced what a digraph is. Stepping stone 2 introduced the sh video. And then the next day, they revised the sh phoneme. They moved on to stone 4 and did the sh video. And then you can see there are activities on stepping stones that the teacher moves on and uses on the interactive whiteboard with the class to practice what you've just taught. And then the apply section at the end, those are activities that children would then take back to their table for them to do independently, obviously, while the teacher goes round and ensures that everybody has really understood the learning that they've done together. So if we look, for instance, here on the Wednesday, they're going to recap those phonemes, and then they're going to go on to Stone 7, where they're doing the phoneme. And here too, you can see that it also talks about introducing the tricky words, that word you, we, and look, introducing those, and it tells you obviously where that is within the guide. So let's go in, and you can see as a teacher, if I'm doing this lesson, I'm just going to click on my preview here, into the program, and I'm just going to mute it there. So obviously last time too, we talked about how when students come into Peak 8, they would only have that first stepping stone lit up. All the others would be greyed out. They have to complete each activity. These ones here, 1, 2, 4, that's 7 and 10, those are all videos. The ones with the gems on, those are all activities. So they need to watch the video, they need to do the activity, and with the activities, they need to get at least 80% correct for it to actually open the next stepping stone. So students work through it a stepping stone at a time, but as a teacher, it's all open so that you can jump back. So if I wanted to recap, I can access all of that. But equally, if I want to if I wanted to dip into a book today, I can go forward and go to a book as well. So everything's open on the teacher console. So if we jump into number 7, this is going to take us through this digraph. So I've turned the sound off. So it's going to be explaining to the children that these two letters to get together make one sound, and that it's the phoneme. And just like when we were doing the phonemes that had one letter, one sound, it's using that same mnemonic. So we had horse, and we had the tree for t. So it's put those two together. So it reminds children that separately, those two letters make those sounds, but then together, they're making the phoneme, and we've got it up there as well. The tree and the horse meet 33 B's. So repeating that sound throughout. And then once you've done that, we are going to move forward. And if I look at my planning here, it tells me that I'm going to go on to the peak, onto stepping stone 8, and we do rolling along. We're then going to do stepping stone 9, and that's all about the word we, which we've taught there as well. So we'll just go to stepping stone 8. So back to stepping stone 8. So we'll just let this open up here. I'm going to turn the sound on so I can hear.
The correct sound. Tap on.
So tap on. So that's the phoneme that we've just learned. So the children looking at the interactive whiteboard, they should be able to identify that. And then it's going to roll down.
Choose the matching picture.
So they're going to sound out the word. So they're sounding out each phoneme, blending it together to make the word them. And then they're going to look at the pictures. So this comes from one of the stories that they'd have done by them, by then, not them. So they're going to know that that's
them.
Them.
Tap on.
And so on. I'm not going to go through the whole activity, but you get an idea. And in that activity rolling along to, not only will you see that digraph coming down and being the beginning sound in a word, you'll also see it modeled in words, say like moth, so that the sound is also at the end of a word. So remember, with systematic synthetic phonics, it's not just about that focus of putting the phoneme at the beginning of the word, but it's also recognizing it throughout the word, depending on the phoneme. But for phonemes like it's about it being at the beginning or at the end as well. And obviously, when they get to longer words, then it can be within a word as well. So, and it's that system of sounding out every single phoneme that is really important within systematic synthetic phonics. So again, within this peak 2, they're going to, you can see now, when we went to peak 3 in the last session, there was only one book. So the early peaks, when children haven't learned a lot of phonemes, there tends to just be 1 or 2 books. But as you move through the program, you'll come across more books within each of the peaks. So again, you can open these up on your interactive whiteboard. They'll be there within the planning at the appropriate time to share with your children, but I'm just going to remind you about them here. So the Yeti's coming on, he's introducing the book. So this time we've got fish for kit. So you can see, obviously, we've done that sh phoneme. And then let's just go through the pages. So click on that arrow down there. So you can see here very much the focus on the digraphs that we've been doing here. So, and all of these words would have been covered. They're either phonetically plausible or they're a tricky word like to. And if it's a tricky word, it would have been taught in a previous peak. So all the words the student can sound out. So again, cash, cash. So able to model that sounding out on the interactive whiteboard. So go through the book with the students. And as I've said before, all of the books in Fast Phonics, written and illustrated, especially for the program, so they're beautifully illustrated. As you go further through the program, you'll also come across both fiction and non-fiction. Within the program, you'll see there's no audio because it is encouraging children to use those phonics skills to read the book. When they've read the book, the Yeti's now going to give you a quick quiz. So students answering the quiz, I think she's off to the shop if I remember. And here you'll notice that some of the words in the questions are using phonemes that children might not have learnt at this point. So for the question, there is audio, but the answers are phonetically plausible at this point. So they should be able to read the answers, but they have support to do the question here. So what does the shop sell? It sells fish. And what can she not stop for? So there we've got that CH because obviously that's one of the phonemes covered in this peak. So for a chat. And what does she find when she gets to the shop? The shop is shut. So obviously we've got the questions correct. So if I was a student doing it, it would then open me up the next peak. If students get less than 4 out of 5, so then they're directed to go back and read the story again. And at that point, if they choose to, they can have audio on to help them go back through the story. So there is that option on your second time through to listen to audio there. So that's a little quick view of that peak there. So peak 8 as an illustration of one of the peaks that is within phase 3. So I'm just double checking if any questions have come through around the peak and the peaks and the content for phase 3. I am going to be taking, there was a question about accessing all those books. Can you see all those books in the library as well? Yes, you can, and we will cover that when we get onto a further section. Okay, so we'll move on a little bit and we're going to go and have a look now at phase 4. So phase 4 of letters and sounds, obviously by that point, students have really covered all the basic phonemes and the focus shifts from learning new phonemes to really practicing blending and segmenting. So up till now too, they've done a lot of work on just CVC words, so those consonant, vowel, consonant words, so cat, dog, mop, all of those sort of words. But now to really practice that blending, they're going to be doing words with adjacent consonants, so words like flag, so that they're having to blend those first two consonants, then sound out the vowel and the end one. So CVCC words and CCVC words really being the focus at this point. So again, I'm going to take us into the program, highlight where all the resources are, and then we'll just dip into Peak 13 and have a look at a couple of the activities in there. So again, if we just come back into the teacher console, let me just get rid of some of those pieces. So I'm going to keep that one open. So I'm going to just move on in this overview. So I'll move on in my overview to Peak 13. So this just gives me that little snapshot. So there it tells me that all the videos in this peak are practicing CVCC words there. And the final one talks about adding ing onto the end of the word there. So that's covered in the final video. And then you can see the wealth of words that students are going to be able to sound out by the time they finish this peak here. So like I say, lots of them. So we've got belt where they've got those adjacent consonants at the end. So sounding out the and blending those two consonants at the end. And equally words like drop and drum with those adjacent consonants at the beginning as well. So, and then underneath that breakdown of each stepping stone. So back in here, this time we're going to select phase 4. So I can unselect phase 3. So there you go, phase 4, just those two peaks, 13 and 14. You can see the focus on adjacent consonants. You can see all the books that are read. Again, we've got the resources all in there. And equally, don't forget, as well as that drop down, you can move through this way. So this way, I'm going to get the weekly guide to download as the support resources. So I'm going to open that up in a new tab. This time I could move to the teaching slide decks here. So I'm going to download my new slide deck. And just to remind you that the end tab there has those training videos. So again, if I'm not familiar with teaching blending and segmenting, there's an excellent video down there. Watch this video. That's all focused on blending and segmenting of those adjacent consonants. And these videos here with the pronunciations, obviously videoed by early years teachers. So you know, they're really good videos in terms of supporting you if you're learning those pronunciations, or if you want support around segmenting and blending, that video's in there. So let's just open up the PowerPoint so you can see again how this would work on your interactive whiteboard. So this time that focus on blending. So we've got adjacent consonants there. Can they blend those sounds together? Again, handwriting practice. So non-cursive and cursive, all of that in there. So obviously there's lots of examples of blends. And then we've got these cards here. So again, you could have printed these cards out, or you can show them on the interactive whiteboard. What would be the 4 phonemes that we put in here? And then, so this time they're listening to the word drum, they're segmenting it into the sounds that they can hear, so that and then they're having to record it there, and they might be recording it on a dry whiteboard, or they might have be writing the letters in the air, or they might the teacher can model it here. Again, we've got and making the word jump and just reading it back through. So listen to the word, segment it to spell it, and then sound it and blend it to check it back again. So all of those there. Again, tricky word cards all in there. And again, the alkaline boxes so that you can model putting the sounds in each box. And then again, all the words there with the sound buttons on them as well. And some of them too, I'm just having a look. So we've got, for instance, there we have that digraph. So we've got obviously the line for the digraph and then each dot for the individual letters that are individual letters making a letter sound. So those phonemes. So 4 phonemes there, the digraph, and then elf. So that one to blend through. So all those resources. And remember, at the end of these slide decks too, if a teacher wants to quickly revise the phonemes that have been covered, you've got the sound map that goes through all the phonemes from phase 3, the sound map from all the phonemes in phase 2 as well. And remember too, this content is also, those sound maps are also in the printable library along with the flashcards as well. So all the resources printable or in those in the slide teacher decks. So let's just go back to where we had peak 13. So I'm going to scroll back through again to the actual lesson plans, and we'll just enlarge this here. So just like before, that same format of lessons. So reviewing first of all, so you can see on that first Monday, review the sound map. So let's go back over the phonemes we learned in phase 3. Then they're watching the video here that introduces the how to hear, identify, hear and sound the CVC words. And then they're also learning some tricky words. And then here, going in to stretch it out. So there, hear and say each sound and blend them together. And there at the end again, a mix of use of the phonics sheets, the handwriting sheets, and then there's additional activities all listed in there as well. So again, if I'm going to teach with the lesson, I'm going to have it there and I simply go preview. So this is going to open up the peak. And again, when I come in, because I'm the teacher modeling, all of my stepping stones are open. So I can model any of the videos. I can jump in and model any of the activities. So we can do these together. So this is one of my favorites here. So fly the flag. So this helps children to see the word. So the word comes in. I'll just turn it on so it's doing the sounding out as we go.
Make the word test.
So make the word test. So again, they've got to so, and it works like that. So they see the word, it gives them the word breaks up, and then they've got to look at the phonemes down there and build it back together. And in this case, because we're in phase 4, we're blending those adjacent consonants. So we've got h, and this time those 2 consonants coming in there, h, and having to blend through those. So lots and lots of practice around blending and segmenting. So that's covered in there. Let's go back to the peak. And again, just like before, the teachers, all that planning there to support you and for you to follow. And then you've got, in this case, 3 additional books in here. So let's just have a quick look at one of these so you can see how the books have moved on by this point, because obviously by this point your children have learned a lot more phonemes, so a lot more vocabulary within the book. So again, remember, we're practicing blending those adjacent consonants, which we've got modelled in the word test there. So yes, you can see very clearly here how children's reading has really progressed. Again, no sound button, because still children just using that strategy of blending through any word that they're not familiar with, they'll know the phonemes and they should be able to blend and read each word, unless it's a tricky word, and the tricky word they would have come across and it would have been taught. So words like he would have been taught at this point, whereas mash, they've obviously done the sh so they can sound out m at sh, and then they've got chop there, ch, op. So you can see how they're just applying all the phonics knowledge that they've learnt through the program to the books within the lessons within each peak there. And again, just beautifully illustrated and especially put together for the program there. So that's really, again, just a quick overview there of the content around phase 4 and how to access all of those resources to support you in class. So that teacher guide with the weekly planners, the teaching deck with all the resources for the interactive whiteboard, and all the additional worksheets as well. So again, I'm just pausing and just checking if there are any questions coming through. And I'd be interested to know too where your students are within their phonics journey, whether you've taken your children through either of those peaks that we've just had a look at, and which some of their favourite activities are. Okay, I can see there coming in some more feedback. Yes, that somebody else saying that activity that I've just modelled is one of their classes' favourite, and also the one that takes the words round. Let me just double check which one that one was. The overview one. It's the one that's often at the end. Don't know that it was in that one. Let me just see if I can see it in another. I know it's in at the end of that peak 8. Just trying to get you there. That's it there, full circle. One of the teachers just commenting on how their students enjoy that full circle. And again, from my years of teaching phonics in school, that full circle game, I remember doing, but writing the word on the interactive whiteboard and changing one letter to create another, or changing one phoneme to create a different word. So it is a activity that lots of you will be familiar with when you're teaching phonics, but obviously it's great to have an interactive version that works on the screen as well, and something that children can practice independently. Okay, so I think we're up to date there. So we're going to move across to looking at all the phonics readers. So I've talked about the fact that there are phonics readers within the Fast Phonics program, but I'm going to show you now how that when you go to the library, there are a lot of additional phonics readers, and we're going to work through how to assign those additional phonics readers, and also how to create a collection of phonics readers. So this time, I'm going to go back to that home area, and we'll go to Start Fast Phonics up at the top. And this time, I'm going to go in as a student. I've just had a quick look at the time, and I am conscious that we were late starting because we had technical issues. So I do understand if you do need to jump off when it gets to past. I will try and get through the rest of the content in sort of the 10 minutes that we didn't have before. So we will try and get through the rest of that content quickly. So if you have to go, you will get a recording that covers everything, but hopefully some of you will be able to stay with me. Okay, so here's my student in Fast Phonics. And when they finish Fast Phonics, they click on buy and they're coming out of the program here. At this point, you'll see that they can go to the library. So here we click into the library. Now, like I say, the library has over 3,000 books. So with your youngest learners, ideally, you want them practicing reading phonetically plausible books. Yes, at home with their parents, they can click on find a book. They can go in and search for books that match their hobbies and their interests. But in terms of phonics, you want them using phonics readers. So get them to look for the Yeti mirror. And you simply click on the Yeti mirror. And in here now, you'll see that all these dots along the bottom all represent a page with 8 phonics readers. So this additional set of phonics readers, this is an additional set of readers from Scholastic. All the blue ones are aligned to phase 2. If I click on the bit further on, the yellow ones are phase 3. The green ones are all phase 4. They are numbered as well. So if children are working through them independently, get them to work through them following the number order. And then it moves on to a pinky colour. So that's phase 5 there. And then at the end, there are also the books from Fast Phonics in there. So they have access to all of those books. And then for the teacher, if I just go back down to that quick links area where all the guides are kept, I'm going to open up for you the document that shows you how the books align with the phonemes that you're teaching. So we come down to quick links into Fast Phonics, and the document here, Fast Phonics Supplementary Online Library Books. That's the document we need. So we're going to open that up. Where has that opened up for me? There it is there. Okay. So again, how they align to the phonemes in phase 2, how they align to the phonemes taught in phase 3. So you can see here, if I'm doing peak 8 and I'm introducing those phonemes, then down the side here, I've got the books that cover those phonemes. So for instance there, I've got chips, I've got such a racket, I've got going fishing there. So those are additional readers that I could give my students in addition to the books from Fast Phonics. And how I do that is if I want to assign a book, you just need to remember that the library is actually part of Reading Express. So we go to Reading Express assignments, we go to create assignments, and again, I don't need to do it for all my students. So this time I'm just going to do Penny. You can set the start and end date there. And here I'm going to select a library book. So having looked at that guide, I've identified the book Chips. So in here, I simply write the title Chips. Now I'm just going to wait a minute because obviously it's then searching through, and there I can see Fast Phonics Chips. So that's the book I want. If I wanted to preview it, I can preview it there. So I could show it on the interactive whiteboard, but that's the book I want to do. So I'm going to create that assignment, and I go back to manage assignments. And there you'll see, if I do that little drop down there, that shows me that it's assigned there to Penny there. If I see here, I've also got that book that I assigned there. And it tells me I assigned it to one person and they've completed it. If I do that drop down, there it tells me Alfie read it. He only needed it to do it once, and the quiz at the end of it, he scored 100% in that. So I can see that that was read and that was great. Now, if I was Penny, for Penny, she's working in Fast Phonics. So she can come in here, she can be practicing her phonics independently. And particularly if she's reading at home, I'd have made sure that her parents or her guardians knew that if I said I assigned a book to her, that it would be in the library. So they'd come through to the library, and then in the library is the book there. So there's that assignment, and she would simply click there to start reading it. So then, in addition to being able to assign individual books, I can also share a collection. So to share a collection, I'm going to go to the teacher library and I would do find a book. Now, in find a book, here I've got their book bands. Now, obviously, children that are learning phonics are going to be in those lower book bands. So I'm just going to move it down to there. And under the filters, I can go phonics here. So now you can see I've got a lot of those scholastic books. I've also got those Fast Phonics books there. And if I wanted to add a book, I simply click there. Now I do have a collection already here that is peak 1 to 3, and you can see that it tells me that that book is already in that collection. If it wasn't in that collection, I would simply click there and it would add it to that collection. Or if I wanted to do a new collection, I would create a new collection there. Once I've got my collection together, so if I come through here, here are all my collections ready. So here, for instance, you can see if my students have completed peak 1, 2, and 3, I can make them a collection. If we click in here, you can see it's got all these scholastic books that cover the phonemes they'd have covered, and it's got the Fast Phonics books as well. And then to share that collection, I simply click across here and I choose whoever I want to share it with. So this time I'm going to share that with Paddy. So once I've shared the collection, it's going to go live for 1 week. So let's just get that there, and the share button down at the bottom of the screen. There it is there. So that tells me it's been shared. And this time I come home into Fast Phonics and I shared it with Paddy. Again, Paddy is working in Fast Phonics. So there he is in Fast Phonics. He's going to be practicing his phonemes. But I've told his parents and he knows there's a collection in the library for you. So he comes through to the library. And then when he comes through to the library, here on the librarian's desk is a collection of books for him. And if he clicks on that, there are those books for him. So there he's got that collection of books. And he can simply click on any of those books. So the nice thing is that you're directing the children to read those phonics books, but you're allowing them to choose which one they look at first. So they've got a degree of choice, which children always enjoy. So in this case, they go in to read the book here. Now, when the book is in the library, because they may be working independently in here, if they need some support with the words,
and Sam,
they can turn on the audio. So there is the option to turn on the audio, but obviously we'd be encouraging them to read it independently. They can favorite the book, they can add a bookmark to it, they can rate the book, they can write a little review. They can do that on all the books in the library. Aware of the time, I'm not going to model how to do that, but just as a heads up, if you're interested in really exploring the library, there is a deeper dive there, that deeper dive Reading Express and the library focuses on the library and Reading Express. And there is one of those actually tomorrow. So if you want to find out all about the library, you could sign up for that one there. So we've covered reading the library, we've covered assigning and sharing. I'm just going to quickly do reports for you. I'm going to not cover all of that. I'm just going to highlight to you where the leaflet is and where the video is on support and interventions. And then we'll just do engaging parents and then we're finished. So again, apologies just for running over a little bit. So we'll come back in and we're going to have a look at the reporting. So just a reminder too, like I say, today's presentation has got all the content from the first session and the second session. And if you would like a copy of that PowerPoint, please do drop that into the chat box. You will get an automated email from GoToWebinar, but it doesn't include the PowerPoint. So if you want the PowerPoint, you can use it in class, you can use it to disseminate amongst other staff, then please do find that chat box and just pop in there, yes please, for the PowerPoint. So in terms of the reports, come down to Fast Phonics, click on reports, click on the dashboard. Dashboard just gives you really a sort of visual view. So here I can see 3 of my students. I'm going to go to my class there. So 3 of my students have done a total of 10 peaks. So it just gives you an overview. Always go from chart across to table. Again, there's a date selector. So if I was using it with a real class as opposed to just this demonstration, I would be coming in every week and just doing last 7 days or this week, something like that. What's good though is that you can do this year, last year, you can do it monthly. You can use the calendar too. So you could do a half-termly report, up to you what you choose in the date selector there. So I go and I clicked the table view. Then what I do, because you have to scroll across to get all the information, and obviously I've got a limited number of students, but if you've got more students, you're also scrolling down. I always put my data in order. I tend to do it in order of the number of peaks completed, so I can see who's been working through the most peaks. And then I do export and I take it out as a CSV file, open that up, and now it's really easy to read. So now I can see straight away the highest peak there, so I can see how my students are progressing through, the peak they started on, where they're up to, how many they've done so far. I can see how many end of peak quizzes they've done and their average there. So obviously this is a demonstration class. They're doing really well. I've just got Marty, who's repeated a few there, and but he's still on 94%. So it's really easy to identify your children that are strong at phonics and any children that might need a little bit of support. Again here, bronze, silver and gold certificates, that they achieve a certificate at the end of the peak, and whether it's a bronze, silver or gold is simply to do with the score that they get. So 80% and they get a bronze, 90% and they get a silver, 100% in that end of peak quiz and they get a gold certificate. So that's how they work. I would be interested to see their time in the program. So who's really been practicing their phonics? So that shows up there as well. And then if I want to know a little bit more, so I want to know how are there any sort of particular peaks that they struggled on, so I can identify phonemes that they've not found as easy. So if, for instance, if I click onto Marty here, so I clicked on his name. So here we've got each of the peaks completed, but for instance, I can see that at peak 19 and 20, 80%, 90% there. Those aren't recorded as areas of weakness because 80% is a pass rate. If he scored less than 80%, those peaks would be highlighted as areas of weakness. So those areas of weakness show up there. But I can see all the phonemes that he's been working on there. And I've also got all the books that he's been reading from within Fast Phonics showing up there as well. Remember, if you've assigned your students extra books from the library, those books are going to come up in the reports in Reading Express and would be under books read. So books from the library, just go to Reading Express and look under books read in there for that information. So really detailed there, how your class is doing, how your individual students are doing. In terms of support and intervention, from the teacher console, if I go down to reports, not reports, into quick links, Fast Phonics, you'll see that there is a guide there to supporting struggling students, and we'll do some more work on that in the third session. And if I go to Fast Phonics lessons and across to the training videos, there is a video around Fast Phonics helping at-risk pupils. So there is a video in there as well. So there are those two resources in the programme that cover that. And then the final slide here around encouraging parents. Again, we'll have covered these points, but I've just pulled it all together here. So encourage parents to set up for an account. So using those parents' letters, make sure they know how to use the My Progress area. Encourage them to watch that intro video there. And again, in the library, make sure they know to look for that Yeti mirror. So those key points there. So great. So I'm just checking across. That's great. I can just see a couple of you requesting a copy of the PowerPoint. So yes, as we draw to an end now, those of you still with us, if you want a copy of that PowerPoint, do just write that into the question or the chat box there. So a couple more coming in with yes, please. So again, apologies for my GoToWebinar not working at the beginning of the session, which has meant we've overrun a little bit. But thank you again for your time this afternoon. Remember, if you want to get that Fast Phonics Parents Teacher Certification, to sign up for the third session. So that's support. You basically do support.3p learning. From there, go to webinars. Within the webinars, select Europe, Middle East, and under Fast Phonics 1 and 2, session 3 is in 2 weeks' time. So if you sign up for that, if you've done all 3, then you'll just get a call from the person that looks after your school to ensure that you've got everything you need for Fast Phonics and for the rest of the programme, and then we'll send you out your certification. So once again, thank you to those of you that are with me this afternoon. And again, sincere apologies for the delay in starting. I'm just going to hang online in case anybody's got any further questions. And I've just left that screen up there, which just goes through the points that we'll be covering in that third session. So thanks again for being here, and hope to see you on session 3.